You know, today's railroads have really interesting histories, like Norfolk Southern. In this video, we will dive into a part of Norfolk Southern's history that played an important part in the merger of the Southern and Norfolk and Western Railway to make Norfolk Southern. Today, we will see NS-30T with the Norfolk and Western Heritage Unit lead south to Binghamton, New York. But before we get to that, here's part of the line on the former Erie route between Binghamton, New York and New Jersey. But we're not here to talk about the Erie. We're here to talk about the Norfolk and Western, especially with this heritage unit. NS 8103 in 2012 was painted into special Norfolk and Western colors to celebrate Norfolk Southern's 30th anniversary, along with 19 other locomotives and other predecessor paint schemes. The 8103 was chosen to wear the Norfolk and Western blue and gold scheme. This was a tough train to go after, as the weather was not so nice this night, especially the temperature. The temperature was around -2. This type of rail fading can be extremely dangerous. So tips were the wise. Go into heated rooms as often as you can and try not to stay outside. Only go outside when the train is approaching. Dress warm and keep track of how long you've been out. Oh, and finally, make sure not to take off your gloves for very long if you do. Your fingers will start to freeze up and you could have potential frostbite. This is not the first time I've done this, and a lot of this I've learned the hard way. Luckily, I live pretty close to the track, so I was able to get heat pretty often every couple minutes. But anyways, here comes the 8103. Now, to understand about the N&W, we gotta go to a town that screams N&W. Back to Roanoke, Virginia. Welcome to the 611 Steakhouse. This restaurant is based off the Norfolk and Western 611. The restaurant is filled with all types of railroad artifacts, mostly from the N&W, but you can find artifacts from most of the railroads in North America. The Norfolk and Western was based out of, you guessed it, Norfolk, Virginia, but Roanoke played a big part in the company's history. The company's famous Roanoke shops are here, and they still serve Norfolk Southern to this day. The Roanoke shops created the famous N&W 611 and the J-Class. The J-Class were very smooth runners and very successful locomotives for the N&W. But not only were they one of the smoothest runners on the N&W, but in the entire country as well. Speaking of the J-Class, here is J-Class N&W 603, sister locomotive to the 611, sitting outside the Roanoke shops. The Roanoke shops could do anything for the N&W, including maintenance, overhauls, repairs. They could do it all. The Roanoke shops are still in service with Norfolk Southern today. As you can see by this picture, there's a turntable and a bunch of modern diesel locomotives all around it. Mostly GEs, but the Roanoke shop can serve any type of locomotive. Here are some more artifacts. Buckles, locks, and even a dinner menu from the Pocahontas train, one of the N&W's most famous passenger trains that were usually pulled by the J-Class. This restaurant not only shows off the N&W's history, but its successor, Norfolk Southern's history, by showing the railroads that Norfolk Southern took over with the Conrail merger. Man, I wonder how old these hats are. Also in the display case here are some old toy and model trains from probably the 50s and 60s, if I had to take a guess. They have all sorts of pictures of the 611 and other N&W steam locomotives. And they also have diagrams, like this one, of the 611. This tells you the builder years, of when the engine was built, horsepower, and other things you may need to know. Here we can see a picture of a J-Class and the A-Class and the Y-Class. The A and Y-Class on the N&W were built to haul the N&W's big coal drags up the mountains, and were very powerful steam locomotives. Oh, and that logo to the right of the picture, well, that's a foreshadow on what would happen to the N&W. More old artifacts, including an old HO scale 611. Also in the display are a bunch of stopwatches or watches that the railroad workers would use. And one of my favorite pieces. I believe this is an MPC 611 from Lionel. If I'm incorrect, someone please let me know. They also had a model train on the ceiling, but it was not running. Man, I would love to take this engine and its train set home. Now, as we can see on NS 8103, Norfolk Southern went with the N&W's blue and gold paint scheme. And I think they did an amazing job. This photo credit is to Ed Painter, and this one is to TJ Mahan at railroadpictures.net. Now, the N&W made a few mergers during its time, but its most famous merger has to be with the Southern Railway. That company in 1982 made Norfolk Southern, and Norfolk Southern is still the powerhouse as it was back in 1982. And speaking of Norfolk Southern, time to get back to the present. Here's NS 264 coming north through Bainbridge, New York. It's got SD6E 6945 and two early 2000s-9s. And when I say early 2000s, I mean they were built in the early 2000s. These were some of the last off the assembly line, especially the 9960, which I believe was built in 2004. But anyways, here's NS 264 going through Binghamton, New York, through the center of town.
91.3 clear signal for 264.
NS 264 is a northbound intermodal train bound for Mechanicsville, New York. However, the true last destination is AR, Massachusetts. In Mechanicsville, New York, the NS runs out of their own trackage and has to go on the Pan Am to get to AR, Massachusetts. Double-stack intermodal trains are forbidden to run on the Pan Am due to the low-hanging tunnels, and the height of the containers are way too high. That is why you'll see single containers in this train to fit through all the tunnels, as double stacks would be way too high and would hit the roof of all the tunnels on the Pan Am. Thanks for watching this video. It means a lot to me. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you around the bend. God bless.